This is Smoky Mountain Youth Media Student Reporting Labs. We meet weekly to produce original, inspiring reports about how national and global issues affect local communities. I'm Jacqueline Jackson.
And I'm Kayla Hammer. This is our official broadcast. Recently, Smoky Mountain Youth Media had an opportunity to visit Vine Middle School, where the after-school program, Club Know-How, was meeting. Here's more.
What we're trying to do here at Vine Middle School is really get young people connected to the community. That's what Know-How, our organization, is all about. We really feel like young people are affected by a lot of decisions that are made and by different issues, but they don't have a lot of opportunities to get involved and have a say in them. So that's what we're trying to do. And here we're learning about the history of the community and the people that we live with now and the things that go on now versus in the past. And so I think anywhere in Knoxville that would be important information for young people to think about and know and share with others.
It has increased my interest by learning about my community and how it all started.
One of the things that, or I guess one of the parts of Know-How's mission is to really create critical consciousness and critical creative consciousness among young people, by giving them information about, in this case, the history of where they're from and where they live. So, as young people become older and move into positions where they have power or where they can, affect change, they know not the history that they might be taught in school or the history that is kind of the main narrative, but they kind of know what really happened. And that's kind of one of the parts of this program, is we're really trying to tell a different story about this neighborhood and show that it's a wonderful place and it's beautiful, and also that it's a place where it didn't used to look like how it looked like now. Lots of open space and stuff. So.
I increased it a lot by making me get out into the community and learning what I haven't learned before, like some things that I haven't been learning.
And anytime students can go and study their history about the school that they attend and the surrounding community of the school where they do attend, that's something that is very good to know, because when you study history, you begin to get a very good understanding of where you came from, where you are now, and it can really help you in the future.
So it gives students a sense of going back to the pride and motivation, but also giving like real good skills, not only in terms of filmmaking, not only in terms of art and culture, but to teach them to be above the average student. So instead of like the writing and arithmetic as they teach in school, is using like documentary skills and using the camera, and trying to be like the masters, trying to be like the next George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. It could be in this room right now. And the beauty of this program is to teach kids, you can be a George Lucas, and teaching them right now those skills, that they learn that now at a young age, they can blow it out the water when they're older, and it can eclipse all those great directors and producers.
Every area, anywhere you are, has its own stories and its own unique set of histories and narratives associated with that, and people who have lived there, who have experiences that you can learn from. And here at Vine, that's just, it's just one part of Knoxville, and there's so many other parts where there's stories to uncover and where there's places where people can learn from where they're from and where they live.
For more information on this program, go to knoxknowhow.wordpress.com.
Now we bring you a report on one of the top 10 issues of 2014, Ebola. We had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Jameson, a local doctor who went to Africa to help those infected with the deadly virus.
Hi, my name is Jamisha. I am here to interview you about Ebola. And the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about Ebola?
I heard about Ebola in 1976 when they had the first outbreak in Zaire.
Have you ever found another virus that was stronger than Ebola?
Well, I don't believe there's been another virus that has gotten the attention that Ebola has gotten. There are other viruses that are similar to Ebola in the hemorrhagic fevers and that class of viruses. And the one thing that makes Ebola gets so much attention is that so little is known about it, and the incidence of morbidity with it. So many people die when they have it. Since the initial outbreak in 1976, they've only had, I believe, about less than 3,000 confirmed cases of Ebola in the world up until this present outbreak in Western Africa. I don't have very much apprehension about the presence of Ebola in the United States because of the situation and the difference in the situation in the United States and in the other countries where they've had outbreaks with Ebola virus. What causes the Ebola to be such a disaster and reach epidemic proportions is not the virus, but the inability of the healthcare and infrastructure to manage the disease. So in the United States, they have a very well organized public health system, and they know how to respond. They have the personnel, the staff that are properly trained, and they have the equipment and supplies to provide the treatment, and they have the infrastructure, the hospitals and the laboratories that are needed in order to go out and take care of the population.
And did you ever work with kids?
Yes, I'm a pediatrician. So I worked with children for many years in my own private practice, and I work with children quite frequently when I go on humanitarian medical missions. And I think the one young person that comes to mind when we talk about working with kids is, well, I'll say his name, William is his first name. I won't say the rest of it. But there were very few survivors in the Ebola treatment unit, and he survived Ebola. And I felt very confident. I was very involved in his care and treatment.
Well, thank you for participating in this interview. I had a great time with you.
Thank you.
My first reaction to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa would be concern. Firstly, for the people and families of those that are infected with the disease in West Africa, and for people around the nation or around the world that could, contract the disease simply by somebody getting on an airplane or walking out of a nation, making physical contact with somebody else and spreading the disease, and then it could spread just as easily as that person going home, hugging their wife, kids, and it can grow at an exponential rate. My second reaction would be shock, simply because this disease is relatively new, and it is growing at an exponential rate. Already thousands of people are infected in West Africa, and that is also something that concerns me, because if it keeps growing at the rate it's growing now, there will be a full-blown epidemic on our hands. My third reaction would be worry and hopefulness that World Disease Control Centers are able to contain this disease and come up with a cure, hopefully in the near future, so that less people will die and we can keep this disease controlled and contained within the parameters that it is now in West Africa.
Over 6,202 people have died from the Ebola virus in West Africa, while 4 cases have been confirmed in the United States, with 2 deaths.
Earlier this year, Knox County schools were sued due to the alleged abuse of test scores in evaluation and rewarding of teachers. The Knox County School Board has also taken on the issue of excessive testing in our schools. Smoky Mountain Youth Media talked with students and teachers at Austin East High School and L&M STEM Academy on their views of excessive testing.
Hi, I'm Jamisha Fain with Smoky Mountains Youth Media. I'm here at Austin East reporting about excessive testing and its effect on students.
You should always study, don't matter how easy or hard the test could be.
Testing does reflect my work because I take my tests like I'm doing regular work in my classrooms. It affects my day-to-day work because all of the work that I'm doing is put together on one test, but I do regular work day to day.
So I don't think that testing overbears on like my grade in a classroom because it's kind of testing what I know in the classroom.
I feel that testing affects our overall grade by if you haven't studied or anything for a test and you was to take it, that it would affect your grade badly. So if you was to fail the test, you would either, if you was at a C and you failed it, you would probably get out a D or an F. So if you did good, you would probably raise your grade.
I actually don't study for tests, yet I do really well on them. But what I suggest for other students to do is to use a note card strategy where they have their definition or text or whatever they have on one side and the answer to it on the back, and go through like that, because eventually it's just going to stick in your head.
Mathline is a live call-in show that is featured here on East Tennessee PBS. The show is hosted by Ernie Roberts, and callers are provided the chance to have their math questions answered live on air. Mathline is live Monday through Fridays from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. here on this station. Jamisha Fain sat down with the show's host to find out more about this program.
Thank you. I'm Jamisha Fain, and I'm here with Ernie Roberts, host of East Tennessee PBS Mathline. How are you, Mr. Roberts?
Hey, I'm doing great today. Thank you for having me on your show today.
How did you come up with Mathline, and who thought of the idea?
Well, I can't take credit for coming up with the idea. My producer, Chris Smith, is one who basically is the brainchild behind this. What he decided was, and he understood that there's a lot of need for tutoring help in the education world. So when he went and discussed with different stations across the country that were doing already things like homework hotlines and such, he found out that 90 to 95% of the calls were math related. So he said, why not focus on math and math alone? And therefore we could concentrate the efforts. So therefore he came and talked with me and said, would you be interested? And for about 1.5 years, we've tried to work out details with this and that. So I finally came on board, and hey, we have this show called Mathline, and people are really tuning in. It's great to have that happening.
What role do you think Mathline has had helping people?
I think it helps, first of all, people with confidence. It's not necessarily so much that we are giving them basics, although many times they do and ask for basics, and I go through them step by step. But I think a lot of it helps them get more confidence in what they can do, things they can master. Sometimes they can work out the problems on their own, or they start to see it and they say, oh yeah, I got it, And that's when I call it the aha moment, and it's really nice to see that happen. But also it just is an outlet, it's a resource for those who don't have maybe parents that can help them out. And a lot of our parents say, don't make me help you out after a certain age, whatever, because the math's starting to get harder for them. But it's an outlet for them to call in. And number one, I think it takes courage for them to call in to begin with, to call in and put yourself out there on TV, especially when you're all over East Tennessee. You got a name attached to it, and sometimes you know what school you're coming from, sometimes you know what county you're in. But it takes a little bit of courage to do that. It's scary a lot of times to ask that. But that in itself is one step forward, and then hopefully the next step is they understand, and then I can explain it well enough for them to have a grasp on it and go back and do other problems that are like it on their own.
Alrighty. And from my information, Mathline was recently recognized by the Knox County School Board of Education about this program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
This is coming from the fact we're hoping to partner with Knox County Schools, which is a wonderful educational entity. I've been a teacher with Knox County before, and it was great pleasure. Dr. McIntyre and the Board of Education all were in agreement to give us a recognition, but also to help promote the show, to promote it as a resource among their students, their teachers, that again, we're not a catch-all. We only are on, 30 minutes a day, and we answer as many questions as we can, but there's so many others out there that are probably untapped and untouched. But we're a resource for those who are willing to call in, and for those who are looking at problems very similar to what are being asked of us at the time. And we have a theme show once a week that delves into problems of the higher level for the Algebra 1 classes, especially. We're working on those to do, and also fractions, decimal percents, things that are basics, but they will hopefully be available online eventually down the road.
Alrighty. Thank you for talking with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Back to Kayla.
Thank you, Jamisha. This has been a production of Smoky Mountain Youth Media, a project of East Tennessee PBS and PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs. Be sure to like us on Facebook and view our reports on Vimeo.